He had everything a man could ever want: power, wealth, respect, and a woman who loved him fiercely. But on the night he was meant to celebrate the biggest achievement of his life, his world began to crumble. Because behind the cameras and the applause stood a secret he never meant for his wife to uncover. A secret that could cost him his empire, his marriage, and even the life of his unborn child. And the enemy threatening to destroy him? Not a stranger, not a competitor, but the one person he once trusted most. Tonight, a billionaire will face the one battle he never prepared for, the battle to protect his family from the betrayal of his own blood.
When the luxury sedan rolled to a smooth stop in front of the grand estate, the world seemed to hold its breath. The car's glossy black exterior reflected the morning sky like a polished mirror, but what captured every onlooker's attention wasn't the vehicle, it was the couple emerging from it. Lucas Davenport stepped out first. Tall, composed, and carrying an aura of quiet authority, he adjusted the sleeve of his tailored navy suit before offering a hand to the woman inside. His movements were controlled, almost ceremonial, but his eyes softened visibly when she took his hand. Isabella. Radiant in her long white dress, fitted over her visibly pregnant belly, she stepped out with grace that belied the turmoil she carried inside. The world saw elegance. The world saw the glow of motherhood, but Lucas knew the truth. She had barely slept the night before. Lucas placed his free hand protectively over hers as she balanced herself. "I've got you," he whispered. "I know," Isabella replied softly, though her tone carried the tremor of someone preparing for a storm. To the cameras, to the security staff, to the passing whispers of the elite guests gathering for the charitable gala inside the estate, they were the perfect power couple, beautiful, wealthy, and harmonious. Everyone called them blessed. Everyone wanted their life. But no one knew that this event, this perfectly orchestrated morning, might be the very last time they'd walk into a building together as a united pair. 2 weeks earlier, Isabella had discovered a secret Lucas never meant for her to see. A folder on his office desk, a legal document, a preparation for a future he never had the courage to tell her about, one that involved her and their unborn child. He had been planning something enormous, something dangerous, something irreversible. And she hadn't confronted him. Not yet. The baby's kicks, her swelling feet, and the weight on her chest were enough. Adding a confrontation, one that might shatter the life they'd built, had felt unbearable. But today, there was no escape. Today, the billionaire philanthropist Lucas Davenport would stand in front of his investors, his business partners, and the press to announce the largest project of his career. A project that Isabella suspected carried the power to destroy everything they had. They walked toward the entrance hand in hand, but the warmth that used to bind them felt thin, fragile, and unfamiliar. As they approached the red carpet, Isabella leaned closer, whispering, "After your speech, we talk. No excuses." Lucas didn't flinch. He didn't ask what she meant. He simply nodded, his jaw tightening almost imperceptibly, a sign she knew too well. He was anxious, more anxious than he ever let the world see. Inside the estate, chandeliers glittered like frozen waterfalls. Guests murmured with admiration as Lucas and Isabella made their way through the luxuriously decorated hallways. People saw love, wealth, and unity, but the truth was quieter, heavier, invisible. Lucas had made a choice months ago, one he believed would secure the future of their child. But in doing so, he had broken a boundary Isabella never imagined he'd cross. And Isabella, in her silence, had made a choice too. To confront him, to demand honesty, to no longer be the woman who smiled through secrets. As Lucas excused himself to meet with the event coordinators, Isabella paused near the window overlooking the estate gardens. She rested her hand on her stomach, feeling a gentle kick. "It's almost time," she whispered to her unborn child, a bittersweet smile forming. "For all of us." Outside, photographers snapped their last pictures. Inside, chandeliers hummed softly, and somewhere between the entrance hall and the stage, fate prepared to tighten its grip on the Davenport family. The storm that had been building in silence was about to break, and neither wealth nor prestige could stop what was coming.
The estate hummed with polite laughter, clinking glasses, and the low murmur of old money discussing global philanthropy as Isabella stood near the velvet-draped window, her hand protectively resting on her abdomen. A soft breeze slipped through the slight opening in the window pane, brushing against her skin like a quiet reminder of the storm gathering inside her. The world outside was calm, but her heart was anything but. It had been 3 weeks since she'd discovered the document. 3 weeks of silence. 3 weeks of pretending. In that time, she had replayed the moment she found it again and again, how she'd walked into Lucas's home office late at night, searching for her prenatal vitamins she'd left on his desk, how she'd noticed the drawer left slightly open, how she'd reached for it absent-mindedly, only to feel the crisp, unfamiliar edges of a folder inside. She remembered the taste of metal on her tongue when she saw the heading, Davenport Family Trust, Emergency Succession Plan. At first, she assumed Lucas was simply updating their future estate planning. That was normal, even responsible. But as she flipped through the pages, the blood drained from her face. Her name wasn't listed as a trustee, not even as a beneficiary, not directly. Instead, the entire fortune, every Davenport asset, properties, investments, international holdings, was set to transfer into a trust controlled by an anonymous advisor. The document stated that the advisor would retain full decision-making power for the protection of Isabella Davenport and unborn heir. The phrasing chilled her. Protection from what? And why hadn't he told her? She remembered standing in that dim office, the only light coming from Lucas's desk lamp, her hands shaking as she turned page after page. Lucas had always promised transparency. He had always told her, in this world, secrets are the roots of destruction. Yet here he was, hiding something massive. When she confronted him the next morning, she hesitated. He was exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, sipping black coffee as he prepared for a trip. She had opened her mouth, ready to ask, ready to demand, but then he'd looked at her with a tenderness she hadn't seen in weeks and said, "You're glowing more every day. I'm trying so hard to get everything ready for you and the baby. I promise it'll all make sense soon." And she froze. She swallowed the words. She smiled. She lied to herself. Maybe she could handle the stress, but could her child? Now here she was, weeks later trying to hold herself together as Lucas rehearsed his speech backstage. This event tonight wasn't just another charity gala. It was the announcement of Lucas's boldest initiative, a global humanitarian fund worth billions. The media would broadcast it everywhere. Investors were watching. But Isabella knew there was more to it. There had to be. Lucas had become a different man in recent months. Protective, distracted, secretive. He had hired private security around our home and insisted Isabella always text him after leaving the doctor's office. He double-checked locks. He changed phone numbers. He insisted they take different routes to the same destination. She wasn't naive. Something or someone was threatening him. Still, she deserved the truth. She was his wife. She carried his son. A soft knock broke her thoughts. Lucas stepped toward her from the hallway, adjusting his cufflinks. "They're ready," he said. "The board wants the announcement to go exactly on schedule." Isabella searched his face. He looked impeccable, confident, composed, everything the world expected from Lucas Davenport, the visionary billionaire with a spotless reputation. But she noticed the tension at the corner of his jaw, the way he flexed his fingers as though preparing for impact. "Lucas," she whispered, "after your speech, I need to ask you something important." He paused, not visibly, not enough for anyone else to catch, but Isabella felt it. His heartbeat seemed to shift. His posture stiffened almost imperceptibly. "Of course," he said, offering his hand. "Anything." It was a lie. Not a malicious one, but a lie nonetheless. She could feel it. She took his hand anyway, allowing him to guide her toward the stage entrance. The packed ballroom grew silent as Lucas stepped up to the podium, cameras flashing in synchronized bursts. Her heart pounded as he opened his speech with that signature calm, commanding presence. "Tonight," he began, "is not about wealth. It's about responsibility." His voice was strong, steady, and rich, but Isabella heard the cracks beneath it: fear, urgency, and a strange sense of finality. As the audience listened, mesmerized, Isabella watched the man she loved speak like someone preparing for consequences only he understood. The pieces were falling into place, and yet the picture remained painfully incomplete. For the first time, she wondered, was Lucas planning for their future, or preparing for his own disappearance? Behind her, someone in the crowd whispered a name she hadn't heard in months, one tied to a past Lucas had sworn was buried. Her breath caught. This wasn't just secrecy. This was danger, and the danger was already inside the room. The applause thundered through the ballroom as Lucas stepped down from the podium, smiling graciously as hands reached out to congratulate him. Cameras flashed in rapid bursts, capturing the triumph of a billionaire philanthropist unveiling his grand humanitarian fund. To the world, the speech was flawless, visionary, inspirational. But Isabella had seen what others didn't. The tremor in his fingers when he adjusted his tie, the way his eyes briefly scanned the room as if searching for threats, the subtle exhale of someone who had just gambled everything. She knew, without question, that Lucas was hiding more than a business strategy, and tonight she would no longer let it sit in shadows. As the crowd swarmed him, Isabella placed a delicate hand on his arm. "Lucas," she said quietly, "we need to talk, now." He glanced at her, truly looked at her, and whatever composure he'd maintained during the speech began to crack. He nodded once, gently disengaged from the admirers, and guided her through a side hallway, away from the glamour and noise. They entered a private lounge reserved for board members. The moment the door clicked shut behind them, the silence felt sharp, like glass stretched too thin. Isabella turned to face him. No audience, no cameras, no excuses. "Lucas," she said, her voice low but steady, "why did you create that trust without telling me?" He froze, completely. His breathing paused, his eyes widened just enough to betray panic. "You saw it," he murmured. "I did. And I deserve to know why my husband is preparing for an emergency plan that excludes me entirely." Lucas dragged a hand through his hair, something he only did when he was on the edge. "Isabella, it's complicated." "I am carrying your child," she said, her voice trembling. "Nothing about our life gets to be too complicated for me to know." He paced the room once, twice, 3 times. She waited, her heartbeat pounding in her chest, the baby shifting inside her as if sensing the tension. Finally, Lucas stopped. He looked up, and the truth spilled out. "It isn't about you," he said softly. "It's about protecting you." "From what?" she demanded. Lucas hesitated. For a moment, it seemed he might retreat into silence again, but whatever he'd been holding inside was too heavy to carry alone. "Someone has been threatening me," he said at last, "for months." "Who? Why?" she demanded. "A rival, someone powerful, someone who wants control of my company badly enough to sabotage me, blackmail me, ruin everything." Her mind raced. "So instead of telling me, you decided to disappear from our own future planning?" "That trust," he said, stepping closer, "was never meant to exclude you. It was meant to shield you." He paused, then continued, with a vulnerability she hadn't seen in him since the early days of their marriage. "I've received detailed warnings about you, about the baby, about our home. The trust is designed so that if I'm taken down, financially or worse, you and your child will have everything protected. No court, no board, no enemy could touch it. But if your name was directly tied to it, they could target you." Isabella felt her knees weaken. She steadied herself with a hand against a nearby table. "And you thought," she whispered, "carrying this alone was better than telling your wife the truth?" Lucas's eyes glistened, but he blinked quickly, too quickly. "I didn't want you living in fear. You're already under enough stress with the pregnancy. I wanted to handle it quietly." "That isn't protecting me," she said, her voice breaking. "That's isolating me." Lucas reached for her hands, but she withdrew slightly, not out of anger, but hurt. "You promised me honesty," she said. "You promised me no secrets." "I know, and I broke that promise. But everything I've done, every risk, every sleepless night, has been for you and our son. I can't lose you, Isabella." Tears welled in her eyes, not from fear, but from the weight of loving a man who carried the world like it was a personal burden. Before she could respond, a sharp knock sounded on the door. Lucas stiffened. A security guard entered, breathless. "Mr. Davenport, we have a situation, a serious one. Your brother, he's here, and he's demanding to speak with you." Isabella felt a cold shiver crawl across her skin. Lucas's brother, the estranged one, the one Lucas never spoke about unless forced. Lucas exchanged a grim look with the guard, then with Isabella. "This is it," he murmured. "It's starting." And for the first time, Isabella understood why Lucas was so afraid. The enemy wasn't some distant rival. It was family.
As Lucas and Isabella stepped out, the security guard leading them toward a secluded boardroom where Lucas's brother waited. Isabella's pulse thudded in her ears, her hand instinctively resting on her stomach. The baby shifted again, restless, uneasy, mirroring the uncertainty swirling in the air. Lucas slowed his pace just long enough to glance at Isabella. "You don't have to come in," he whispered. She lifted her chin. "I'm your wife, Lucas. And whatever this is, we face it together." He didn't argue. He only squeezed her hand before turning toward the boardroom door. Inside, a tall man stood with his back to them, staring out the glass window that overlooked the driveway. His posture was rigid, shoulders tense, fists clenched behind him. When he turned, Isabella felt a shock at the resemblance. Same dark hair, same sharp jawline, same piercing eyes, except these held bitterness instead of warmth. "Hello, brother," Adrian Davenport said, voice cool as ice. Lucas exhaled slowly. Adrian. Isabella had heard the stories. Brothers separated by ambition. A family business torn apart by greed. Adrian had once worked alongside Lucas in the company's early days, but after a string of questionable decisions and financial missteps, he had been pushed out.
Lucas had covered for him publicly, twice, but the third scandal had forced Lucas to sever ties. Adrian never forgave him. Now, standing in the boardroom with a smug smile playing at the corner of his lips, Adrian radiated the confidence of a man who believed he was finally winning. "I watched your speech. Impressive. So inspiring. So heroic." Lucas crossed his arms. "What do you want?" Adrian pulled a folded document from his inner jacket pocket and tossed it onto the conference table. It skidded across the polished wood until it stopped inches from Lucas. Isabella recognized the format instantly. Legal paperwork, corporate seals, financial statements. Her stomach knotted. Lucas unfolded it, and all the color drained from his face. "What did you do?" he whispered. Adrian's smile widened. "Something I should have done years ago." Isabella stepped closer. "Lucas." He handed her the document. Her eyes scanned line after line, her breath shortening as realization hit. It was an accusation of fraud against Lucas, filed anonymously, but the evidence was detailed, precise, intimate, too intimate. Financial transfers that never existed, shell companies he'd never heard of, transactions stamped with forged signatures, a trail crafted to look like Lucas had embezzled millions from his own humanitarian fund. And worse, several federal agencies had already acknowledged receipt. Isabella pressed a hand to her mouth. This could ruin you." "That's the idea," Adrian said, strolling casually around the table as if admiring his handiwork. "Lucas Davenport, the golden boy of the business world, exposed as a fraud. Investors will flee. Stocks will plummet. And when the dust settles, guess who's positioned to take over the company's assets?" Lucas shook his head in disbelief. "You would destroy the entire family legacy just to spite me?" "No," Adrian snapped, his voice raw with resentment. "I would destroy you to reclaim what should have been mine." Isabella saw something then, something Lucas never shared. Pain. Guilt. A history woven with mistakes, sacrifices, and unspoken wounds. "Adrian," Lucas said, stepping forward, "you weren't pushed out to hurt you. You were pushed out because you were hurting the company. I covered for you. You humiliated me," Adrian roared. The table rattled from the force of his fist slamming against it. Isabella flinched. "You paraded around as the responsible brother, the perfect son. Meanwhile, I drowned trying to live up to expectations no one ever placed on you." Lucas shook his head. "That's not true." But Adrian was beyond reason. "You took everything. Now I'm taking it back." Two security guards rushed in, alerted by the raised voices. Adrian held up his hands mockingly. "Relax. I'm leaving. I've already delivered what I came to deliver." He turned to Lucas. "Enjoy your last moments as a hero. Tomorrow you'll be headline news." He walked to the door, pausing just long enough to look at Isabella. "And congratulations on the baby," he said coldly. "Shame your husband won't be around to enjoy fatherhood." Isabella felt fire ignite in her chest. Lucas moved instantly, stepping between Adrian and Isabella. "You don't ever speak to her again." He smirked. "You can't protect her, Lucas. Not from me, not from what's coming." Security escorted him out, but his words lingered like poison in the air. Isabella turned to Lucas. This is what you were afraid of." He nodded, eyes heavy with defeat. "Adrian has been behind the threats, the messages, the shadows following you, all of it." "But why didn't you tell me?" she asked, voice cracking. I didn't want you to know that my own brother wanted us destroyed." Tears filled Isabella's eyes, but not from fear, from resolve. "Lucas," she took his hands firmly, "we are not going to let him win. Not this time, not ever." And he looked up at her, surprised by her strength, when he could barely hold himself together. She continued, voice steady, "You tried to protect me alone. Now we fight this together." And at that moment, standing in a silent boardroom clouded with betrayal, Lucas realized something powerful. He had underestimated the strength of his wife, and she was about to become his greatest weapon.
The hours after Adrian's departure unfolded like a storm without thunder, silent, tense, and suffocating. News outlets hadn't released anything yet, but Lucas knew it was only a matter of time before his brother's fabricated allegations exploded across every screen in America. His empire, built with sleepless nights, relentless discipline, and genuine intention, was about to be smeared beyond recognition. Isabella remained beside him the entire time, not hovering, not panicking, not doubting, just present, solid, calm, grounded. Lucas had always been her protector, the one who made her feel safe in a world that could be unforgiving. But tonight revealed an unexpected truth. She could be his armor, too. As they sat in a private office hours after the confrontation, Isabella leaned forward, her hand resting lightly on Lucas's trembling ones. "Look at me," she whispered. He lifted his head, eyes red from exhaustion, exhaustion not of the body, but of the soul. "You are not alone in this," she said. "Adrian may have crafted a perfect lie, but lies unravel, and we're going to pull every thread." Lucas exhaled shakily. "I don't want you dragged into this mess." Isabella said firmly, "Lucas, I'm already in it. The moment he threatened our child, this became my battle too." Her voice carried a quiet fire, the kind that didn't roar but burned steadily, consuming doubt one ember at a time. Lucas leaned back, his mind racing. The documents Adrian created, they're flawless. No errors, no contradictions, even the signatures are identical. "That means," Isabella said, tapping her fingers lightly on the desk, "he had help. Someone skilled, someone with access." Lucas nodded slowly. "A forensic accountant." "Or," Isabella countered, "someone pretending to be one." She stood, pacing the room as her thoughts sharpened. Adrian doesn't have the discipline to orchestrate something this clean. He's impulsive, emotional, reckless, but he's also vindictive, which means he found someone smart enough to build the trap for him. Lucas watched her carefully. He had always known Isabella was intelligent, but tonight she looked like a strategist, someone who thrived under pressure. "Who had access to your financial records recently?" Lucas rubbed his forehead. "All senior-level partners, the audit department, legal, and the humanitarian fund team." Isabella stopped pacing. "The humanitarian fund team, the one you announced tonight." Lucas froze. A woman's name came to mind, and it hit him like ice water. A former partner of Adrian's, a financial analyst who had left Lucas's company under the pretense of creative differences. A woman Lucas had fired years ago for manipulating budget reports. "Julia Crane," he whispered. "Who is she?" Isabella asked. "Trouble, the kind that wears a smile and carries a knife." He explained quickly. Julia had tried to sabotage a major acquisition years ago. Adrian had defended her fiercely back then, too fiercely. Lucas always suspected something between them. It all fit now. "She's the one who forged the documents," Isabella said, "and Adrian used them as the weapon." Lucas paced now, adrenaline sparking. "If we can prove Julia altered financial records, we can expose the entire plot. And clear your name." Lucas looked at her, really looked at her. Hope, determination, clarity, qualities he had almost lost under the weight of secrecy. "You believe we can win this," he said softly. "I know we can, but we need evidence, real evidence, something they can't twist." Lucas hesitated. There might be one person who can help. Someone who audited Julia's department before she left. Someone who noticed inconsistencies but didn't have enough proof to report them. "Who?" Isabella asked. "Martin Reyes." A quiet, unassuming man with a sharp mind and an even sharper moral compass. He had tried to warn Lucas once, but the company was drowning in crises, and Lucas hadn't listened. "Call him," Isabella urged. Lucas nodded and pulled out his phone. 15 minutes later, Martin arrived at the estate, eyes wide open with urgency. Isabella watched as Lucas explained everything. Martin's face tightened with anger when Julia's name was mentioned. "I knew she was involved," he said. "She was transferring micropayments to ghost accounts, small amounts at a time, too small to trigger alerts, but over months they added up. If we can track them back to her," Isabella said, "we can expose the forgery." Martin nodded. "I can try, but I'll need access to the original encrypted logs on the company server." Lucas frowned. "I was locked out of several systems this morning." "Because Adrian already planted flags," Martin said grimly. "He's fast." "But we're faster," Isabella replied. In that moment, Lucas felt something inside him realign, something he hadn't felt in weeks. Strength, purpose, fight. He wasn't powerless, he wasn't alone, and he wasn't finished. As Martin set to work on his laptop, Isabella placed a gentle hand on Lucas's cheek. "We're going to clear your name," she said softly, "and we're going to do it together." Lucas pulled her into his arms, holding her as if anchoring himself to the one person who had never wavered. "I don't deserve you," he whispered. Isabella smiled. "No, you don't, but you have me anyway." And in that moment, surrounded by the humming of servers, the tapping of keys, and the faint heartbeat of their unborn child, the path to redemption began.
The night sky over the Davenport estate shimmered with distant city lights, but inside Lucas's private office, the glow came only from laptop screens and the silent intensity of determination. Martin worked tirelessly, fingers flying across the keyboard, lines of code unraveling like a confession in digital form. Isabella sat beside Lucas on the leather sofa, her head resting lightly against his shoulder, their hands intertwined, a silent vow of unity. Hours ticked by. Finally, Martin pushed back from the desk. "I found it." Lucas stood immediately. Isabella rose slower, one hand on her belly, her breath held. Martin turned his laptop toward them. "These are Julia's ghost account transfers. Every forged transaction is linked to a hidden ledger she created under Adrian's direction." He clicked another file, this one filled with metadata. "And this," he continued, "is proof she manipulated the documents implicating you. Timestamps, server logs, access keys, she left a trail without realizing it. Everything points back to her and to Adrian." Isabella exhaled, tears gathering in her eyes. "So this clears Lucas?" "More than clears him," Martin said. "This destroys their entire scheme." Lucas closed his eyes, overwhelmed by a mixture of relief and exhaustion. "Thank you, Martin. You've saved us." Martin shook his head. "Not yet. You need to make this public, before Adrian does." Isabella nodded. "Then we go to the media first. We get ahead of it." Lucas hesitated. "We'll need a strong statement, with evidence so undeniable that no one can twist it." Isabella touched his arm gently. "Then say the truth, all of it." The press conference. By morning, cameras crowded the entrance of the Davenport corporate headquarters. Rumors had already begun leaking online.
speculation, half-truths, anonymous claims. But Lucas wasn't hiding anymore. He walked to the podium, Isabella by his side, her presence grounding him. The crowd erupted with questions, microphones stretching forward like grasping hands. Lucas raised a hand. "Last night," he began, voice steady and strong, "false allegations were prepared to frame me for financial misconduct." The crowd fell silent. These accusations were fabricated by individuals attempting to seize control of my company. He gestured to the screens behind him. Evidence appeared: transaction logs, metadata, email records. Proof so meticulous that gasps rippled through the audience. This was an attack, but not from strangers, from someone I once called family. Reporters murmured, cameras clicking furiously. Lucas paused, taking Isabella's hand openly. "I should have come forward sooner. I should have trusted those closest to me with the truth, especially my wife. But instead, I tried to carry the weight alone, and that silence nearly allowed a lie to destroy everything I've built." He turned to Isabella, voice softening. "You have been my strength, my clarity, my anchor, and I vow before the world to never shut you out again. You and our son are everything." Isabella's eyes glistened, her heart swelling at the sincerity in his words. Lucas faced the crowd again. "As of this moment, legal action has been initiated against Adrian Davenport and Julia Crane. We have full cooperation from federal investigators to prosecute them." The final slide displayed, "Criminal investigation opened. Warrants issued." The press exploded with questions, but Lucas stepped back, placing a protective arm around Isabella. They had said what needed to be said. The truth was out, and the storm had finally begun to pass. A new beginning. 3 weeks later, the estate was quiet again, peaceful for the first time in months. Adrian had been arrested while attempting to flee the country. Julia had confessed when confronted with the evidence. The media now painted Lucas not as a fraud, but as a symbol of resilience and transparency. Isabella sat on the porch, breathing in the fresh morning air. Her pregnancy had reached its final stretch, and every kick felt like a tiny reminder that life continued even in chaos. Lucas stepped outside with 2 cups of tea, lowering himself gently beside her. "How's my favorite warrior?" he teased. "Tired," she laughed, "but happy." Lucas took her hand, rubbing her palm with his thumb. "I've been thinking, after everything that happened, I want to make you a promise." She raised an eyebrow. "Another one?" "This one's different," he said. He shifted to face her fully. "I promise that no matter how powerful our world becomes, no matter how heavy the burdens get, I will never again carry them alone. You're not my shadow, Isabella. You're my equal, my partner, my heart." Her breath caught. Tears spilled freely now, not from pain, but from love so deep it was almost overwhelming. "And I promise," she whispered, "that we will face everything together, even the hard truths. No more silence between us." Lucas kissed her forehead gently. "Deal." At that moment, Isabella gasped softly. Lucas pulled back alarmed. "Are you okay?" She smiled through tears. "It's time." His eyes widened. "Now?" She nodded, gripping his hand as another contraction rolled through. Lucas helped her to her feet, his voice trembling with awe. "We're going to meet our son." Hours later, as dawn broke over the city, their baby boy entered the world, healthy, strong, and surrounded by love. Lucas held him gently, his heart overflowing. "This," he whispered, "is our future." Isabella touched their son's cheek,
then Lucas's, our promise. And as the sun rose, painting the room in warm golden light, the Davenport family began the next chapter of their lives. Scarred but stronger, wounded but whole, broken but rebuilt in love. A story not of wealth alone, but of unity, courage, and unshakable devotion. The end of one battle and the beginning of a legacy.